Hey everybody, welcome to Shop Bernie's, where if they were biting, we'd be catching them. You know, my dad, bless his heart, he loved nothing more than sitting on the lake trying to outsmart a big old bass. Taught me everything I know about fishing. So, I figured it's time to share some of that wisdom with y'all. We're gonna dive into my top 5 base fishing lures that'll have you reeling them in faster than well, you'll see. Get ready for an electric fun and, dare I say, redneck ride. First up, we got the spinnerbait. Now this here lure, it's got more flash than a disco ball at a tractor pull. You see that blade spinning? It's enough to make your head spin, and it'll drive those bass plumb crazy. I'm talking about spinning so fast it makes my Aunt Sally at a wedding look like she's standing still. And let me tell you, when Aunt Sally gets to spinning on the dance floor, ain't nothing gonna stop her. Except maybe a runaway buffet line. But I digress. This here spinnerbait will catch you more fish than you can shake a stick at. Now you can get these spinnerbaits in all kinds of colors, but I like to keep it simple. White and chartreuse, black and blue. You know, the classics, and don't be afraid to experiment with the size of the blade. Sometimes those bass want a little something different, like a bigger, flashier dance partner. Just remember, when it comes to spinnerbaits, the more it spins, the more they win. Next up, we got the crankbait. Now, this here lure is about as essential to your tackle box as duct tape is to a redneck's toolbox. It's versatile, it's reliable, and it'll catch fish when nothing else will. You see, the beauty of a crankbait is that you can fish it at all different depths. You can crank it fast, you can crank it slow, you can even stop it and let it float up a little bit, then crank it again. It's like dancing with a partner who actually knows all the steps. And speaking of cranking, this little fella cranks through the water better than my old lawnmower on a Saturday morning. You remember that lawnmower? The one that sounded like a herd of angry squirrels trying to escape a coffee can? Yeah, this crankbait's got that same kind of energy, just without the exhaust fumes and the threat of a hernia. But seriously, folks, the key to a good crankbait is the action. You want something that's gonna wobble and wiggle and drive those bass wild. And trust me, when a bass sees this thing coming through the water, looking all lifelike and irresistible, it ain't gonna be able to resist taking a bite. Now, if you're looking for a lure that's gonna fool more fish than my cousin's magic tricks, look no further than the plastic worm. Now, I know what you're thinking. A plastic worm, that don't even look real. And you're right, it don't. But that's the beauty of it. You see, bass, they ain't the sharpest tools in the shed. They see something moving along the bottom, looking all tasty and helpless. They can't help but investigate. And that's when you get them. There are more ways to rig a plastic worm than there are ways to mess up a 2-car funeral. You've got your Texas rig, your Carolina rig, your wacky rig, your drop shot rig. Heck, you can even rig it on a hula hoop if you're feeling adventurous. But my personal favorite, the one that never lets me down, is the good old Texas rig. Just put a bullet weight on your line, thread that worm on there, and you're ready to go catching. Drag it along the bottom, hop it over weeds, let it sit there and do nothing. The possibilities are endless. Just be prepared for when that bass hits. It'll feel like you hooked a runaway tractor. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to talk about the jerkbait. This here lure is for all you adrenaline junkies out there, the ones who like their fishing with a little bit of excitement. You see, the key to a jerkbait is in the name. You gotta jerk it. Give it a little twitch, a little pop, a little something to make it look like a wounded bait fish. And when those bass see that, well, let's just say their inner predator comes out. I've seen this lure cause more commotion in a school of bass than a bobcat in a chicken coop. It's like they just can't resist that erratic, unpredictable action. One minute it's just sitting there minding its own business, the next minute, BAM! It's darting off in another direction like it's trying to escape something. And those basses, they can't stand to let a good meal get away. Now I ain't gonna lie, jerkbait fishing can be a little tricky at first. It takes a little practice to get the hang of the whole jerk, jerk, pause rhythm. But once you do, let me tell you, it's addicting. It's like dancing a jig with a fish on the end of your line. And speaking of jigs, let's move on to our final lure. Last but not least, we got the top water frog. Now this here lure is just plain fun to fish. You get to see those bass explode on it right there on the surface, and let me tell you, there's nothing quite like it. It's like watching fireworks on the 4th of July, only instead of colorful explosions, you got a big old bass trying to swallow a frog whole. And speaking of frogs, this here lure hops and skips across the water just like a real frog trying to escape a hungry gator. You can fish it over weed beds, around lily pads, even just walk it across open water. And when a bassist sees that frog skittering across the surface looking all vulnerable and delicious, well, let's just say it don't stand a chance. It's like trying to resist a plate of grandma's homemade apple pie. Ain't nobody got that kind of willpower. So, there you have it, folks. My top 5 bassist fishing lures. Now get out there and try them out for yourself. And remember, if they ain't biting, you ain't trying hard enough. Well, folks, that's all she wrote. We've covered more ground than a pack of squirrels in a pecan orchard, and I hope you learned a thing or two about catching those elusive bass. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future fishing adventures. And while you're at it, head on over to our online store and check out our selection of top-quality fishing gear and hilarious merch. Remember, at Shop Bernie's, if they were biting, we'd be catching them. Now go on, get.